Welcome to Courageous Conviction. Remember that Jeff and I record each Saturday 5 episodes. So please hit the like button, subscribe so you catch all 5 episodes. We usually start out with one theme or topic. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes to really understand it. Some things are more sensitive than others right now, what's going on in the world. So hit the like button, subscribe, and let's jump into this video.
How do we assimilate migrants into Zion? And that's what's happening right now. This is a formation. Now, these people coming right now, most of them are coming to destroy what exists. And that's prophecy. That's in the Book of Mormon. We would forget about God. We'd forget our national covenant. Even, Tim Ballard wrote the book of the on the national covenant called The Covenant. Really good book, by the way. There's 2 volumes, one for general public, and others a 2-volume set that's actually uses the Book of Mormon to help solidify the doctrine behind this. Back to Elder Bednar. Here's what he said, Jeff. He said, "Look, you and I both know," talking to the audience and the interviewer. He said, "To go to college, all you got to do is learn to play the college game. You learn how to cram for a test, pass a test, and you graduate college, you got a degree, and you have no education." And I've always argued that. And he said today, he gave the inclination that, even today, where there's so much, fodder being taught, do you really come out of college with an education? So he said, a true education doesn't come because you go to college. You're not educated because you have a college degree. And I love that because I stepped out of college my second year. I read into this woke stuff. I read into it then. And I was, with my teachers, I was a constant battle to defend my faith in my business and my biology classes in my first semester. Right. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I don't want this. So I learned how to study. And then I went out and started studying. And I've been educating myself ever since. I'm 59 years old. Right. This started just after my mission when I was 22. And since I'm 22 to now, I've been educating myself. And and even Elder Bednar said, when you go to college, you don't learn how to research for yourself. You become codependent on a professor. And that professor is where you go to for your answers. And then you go out there and you just answer the test, but you never learn how to educate yourself or research and figure things out for yourself. Discovery is the key to education. And discovery is education, right? When you figure it out for yourself. So there is a sense of personal responsibility in education, even in church CES program, right? And I thought that was wonderful. Now he goes on even more. The idea is not to get into that today, but what I want to get to is personal responsibility. And then we come into the law of Zion and being of one mind. How then do we assimilate? Now, look, I'm just going to throw this in and I'm going to turn some time back to you. And then we can dissect a little bit here to a chapter of Clausen's book on the law of consecration, and basically highlighting what the general authorities have stated. This is the qualifications to enter into the law of consecration when that actually will be organized. And what we're looking at right now, that could very well be in our lifetimes, Jeff. Even though we're getting older, that could be in our lifetimes. We start seeing that formation. You're seeing it now, I believe, in the red states because that qualification, the filter is the U.S. Constitution. And that's the assimilation. That's what would assimilate people going to Zion is the U.S. Constitution. And what we need to do is I should put this book down as a reference. People will read it for themselves, and they can find all the references in church doctrine that are stated here by Skousen that the qualifier to get in under the tent of Zion is the U.S. Constitution. So if they want to come here and form a part of this Zion society and fall under the Lord's protection, they will then need to support the U.S. Constitution, right? Yeah. Not some futurist constitution. It's clear that Brigham Young makes it clear that it is the Constitution in its original format with its original amendments. That's the Constitution that will be the law of Zion going out to the world, right? Yep. So even the stakes of Zion will be filtered eventually with that Constitution. And you're already seeing, opposition to that with Elder Oak's talk. Now, with that being said, I'm going to give you some comments, and then I want to break into this a little bit.
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring up the law of consecration because that's really where we're headed. As Zion, and the stakes of Zion, because you can't live in the last days. And we were required to live that way in pioneer days, and it didn't really work out. It was a difficult situation. Do I think that the members of the church back then were less dedicated to the church? Absolutely not. But they had been coming out of this situation to where they were trying to meet their own needs, each and every family. But when it surpassed things and started, each temple, and the Temple of Kirtland, the Temple of Nauvoo, took over 3 years, maybe 4 years to finally get built. And they were building other, especially in Nauvoo, they were building other edifices, and these other buildings that weren't really needed, that, more than the temple. And the church was chastised. It came under a thumb, of our Father in heaven was not happy about that. Living the law of consecration is important. It's still the law. And eventually we're going to have to, assimilate that into our lives. And it could be, just like you said, we're both 59. And, does that mean that we're going to have to give everything of ourselves? Yeah, I think so. Does it mean that members of the church aren't required, to have food storage because other members are going to be, managing that for them, and some will and some won't? I think that those that don't are going to receive some consequences that they're not going to be really fond of, Obviously, it's important to follow those commandments. We've been required since, ever since I've been a member of the church, since I was born into the church, to have food storage. I remember growing up, my parents used that food storage to keep our costs of feeding a family of 10 down. What's it going to be like now? Well, as far as I'm concerned, things are black and white. It's either right or wrong. We've just lived into this, and we live in this world right now where there's too much gray. And I think that maybe 20% of those that are coming over the border are salvageable, because they're gonna assimilate into our country. Maybe that's where Zion is headed, and there's gonna be those that are gonna fortify, Zion, and we can lock arms together, no matter what the color is, no matter what the background is, because we all have a common belief in living that same law and providing for, the building up of Zion. And those that don't agree with that, well, we're going to fight against that. It's not about just being peaceful and saying, hey, we're not going to do anything, and we're just going to lay down and let people take our homes and take our land and take, whatever they want to take. No, that's not going to happen. When it starts happening, and we're seeing that happen right now, then that's got to be fought against.
Well, we in common sense here, Jeff, too, and I say common sense in the way of, that it doesn't replace spiritual revelation or inspiration. I'm just saying that the common sense here would be the idea that Zion would be an area that would be protected, right? You understand that in Zion you're going to have a brotherly love, and we're going to be protected. And now, the same time Zion is going to be building up, you have the wars with Gog and Magog, out destroying in this battle in Israel, etc. Is it this one? Who knows? Could very well be. If you do your scriptural references and research, that Gog and Magog is going to consist of mostly Islamic nations, because some of those are still mentioned. Some of those are still carry the same names of those countries today, right?
If it's not it's the precursor,
Yeah, right, exactly. And so, maybe this is the beginning of that final battle, but this is definitely something that how it's going to play out. And this could be the one, right? This could be everything happens in the next 20, 30 years. Don't know. Another thing Elder Bednar did mention, he said that a lot of people don't understand that we as a general authorities, we look out 30 to 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
We're not looking at right now. He said, because all statistics, even in government that come out, are hindsight, right? They're delayed. And there's
the church has always been forward thinking.
Yeah, it's trying to be forward thinking. And so we have to kind of just go with and try to get the benefit of that doubt right now with the division that's going on with the whole LGBTQ thing, right? Forward thinking in that. Sometimes I think, well, where is it forward thinking? This is only going to cause more division. But, maybe the Lord has inspired to them that down the road, this is going to even be more controversial. And we need to start with a platform now where we can start somewhere to where we can help these members that are going to get confused and caught up in this large and spacious building to not lose their testimonies and at least hold on to some point of the rod of iron, right? And I think that's kind of I hate to say this, but they're kind of preparing for a desperate moment, when members are really going to be tried. It's happening now, but this is the beginning, brother.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of the trials. And if we don't put our pants on and buckle up our belt, we're going to be in for a ride. What's that?
We haven't seen anything yet.
No.
I think people have no idea what's coming. And, I hate to be the doomsday, guy, and that's not what I am, and I don't think that the church is that. I think that the prophet was right, that in the last days that there are going to be those that you can be joyful. You can receive what's coming with open arms. There's going to be death and bloodshed and all this bad stuff and increased crime. We're seeing that already. I don't see that getting better until people start saying, "Hey, we don't want that anymore in our communities," and start fortifying, building things together so that we can prevent our government's not going to do that for us. And that's why being able to be armed to be important, to be able to protect our cities and our communities against what's to come. People that want to change not only our governments, but change our communities and make things less safe.
Well, and the confusion now is what's true, right? And the confusion is at to what point do we bleed our hearts out? At what point does compassion have an end, right? It's like I've said before.
You got to be compassionate always.
No, I'm not saying that, but how far? It'd be compassion, because compassion can become toxic, as we're starting to see now, right? So at what point does the compassion end with the law of justice, right? Well, justice has its claim.
So what you're talking about is sympathy versus, being empathetic, so as far as I'm concerned, compassion, is going to be real compassion. The kind of compassion we need to have is to be empathetic for people that, we can see ourselves in their shoes. And I don't ever want to lose that ability. Does that make us more vulnerable? Sure. There's some vulnerability. And I think that kind of goes with being Christ-like.
It goes along with freedom too, right?
It does. It's part of this. It's part of this whole nature, being Christ-like and being empathetic. Those are core values that we cannot lose, so that has to be maintained. And at the same time, justice, if it's not met, where's the compassion in that? What about the victims? So there has to be a balance there. There's push and there's pull. When you fly a kite, if you don't have wind and some resistance, that kite's not going to go anywhere. You got to have resistance. So in this case, we see that we're going to have to fight back on things that are wrong, and not be wishy-washy, and not say, "Hey, yeah, you know what? I don't have a problem with anything that a transgender guy walking into a bathroom, when my daughter's in there, I'm not going to be happy about that, and I'm going to say something about that because I don't think it's right." Go to a bathroom you can lock and be by yourself.
Well, a pedophile can just claim himself to be, a different gender, and they do that already. It's already happening,
They're disguised, So, whether or not you believe that a transgender person biologically can change their gender because it's so fluid and changeable, I don't believe that. But there's enough people that do, and they want to change the politics. The fact is that whether you want to believe it or not is fine. Just don't go into my daughter's bathroom.
Yeah. Well, I agree 100%. And so, and that's where it's
don't play on her.
It shouldn't be difficult.
If she's into boxing, I don't want when she's a teenager. If she, I don't mind her kicking some little kid's ass. Excuse my French. Out in the boxing ring, when they're young like this. But when there's a difference between women's sports and men's sports, I think that there needs to be a difference. And I don't want to get into the whole LGBT.
No, but that's justice, and you're talking justice right there. That's just.
That's really the core of it. There has to be justice. The problem. One of the reasons, the main reason, we left Costa Rica, years ago, and is completely different from the reason why I went there in the first place, which was, hey, there's all these great things. There's no military. There's free medicine and this whole completely democratic society. I think that kind of surpassed our own in the U.S.
I thank you for being with us on Courageous Conviction. Remember, there's 5 episodes each week that we put out. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes, so stay with us. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and don't miss tomorrow's episode on Courageous Conviction.